What's going on, everyone? It's the Fantasy Football Almanac, back at it with another fantasy football video. Today we're going to be talking about lessons learned from week 5 of NFL football, every single game. But before we get into it, if you guys could, please go down, give this video a like, give this video a comment. I am answering every single fantasy football question, trade, start sits, anything. I would love to help you guys. And subscribe to the channel, turn that notification bell on so you do not miss another video. With that out of the way, let's hop right into it in our first game of the week. The first game of the week, I will admit, it was really bad to watch. It was the Colts versus the Broncos. In case you didn't watch, you didn't really miss too much. Jonathan Taylor was out, and in his wake, you had Naheem Hines, who got injured, and then Deion Jackson, who filled in and actually played fairly well. But at the end of the day, my main takeaways from this game, from the Colts side, is that there's really nobody you can start on a week-to-week basis. Maybe you can trust Pittman if you need a wide receiver 2-3 type guy, but he's not going to be that guy, that wide receiver 1 type that we thought at the beginning of this season. I mean, I didn't think that personally, but he was being drafted as if he was a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2. Then Matt Ryan is not going to be able to support this offense, especially not without Jonathan Taylor. My takeaway from the Broncos side, on the other hand, is that, I mean, it did come out that Russell Wilson was playing through a lot of shoulder pain and did get an injection, so maybe that'll help. But I'm really concerned. I think this Broncos defense is elite, but I think this Broncos offense looks really bad. There's only like 2 people you can trust on a week-to-week basis, and it's really just Sutton and maybe Judy. Melvin Gordon should be like a low-end flex play on any given week, but nothing crazy. And then the next game, the London game. I had 2 main takeaways from this. I'm a Giants fan, so I actually woke up to watch it. But it was Giants versus Green Bay Packers, in case you did not watch. Daniel Jones versus Aaron Rodgers. And I had a few main takeaways. And that's the Giants, for one. They might actually be a playoff team, and I was not expecting to say that at all. I thought we were going to win 6 games. Looks like we could win closer to 9. And if that's the case, I'm going to be very happy. Considering we still do have 2 games against the Commanders, but really the only fantasy start on a week-to-week basis, unless you're in a 2-quarterback league, is Saquon Barkley. Daniel Jones, you could start in a 2-quarterback league if you really need a pinch QB, but not somebody you're going to be really happy about because the touchdowns haven't really been coming. He does have the rushing upside, so if he can connect to both, it'll look a lot better for him. But other than that, I'm not starting Darius Slayton on any given week, especially when our other wide receivers are back. And then other than that, I mean, Richie James, Sills, I'm not trusting anyone else in this offense to really do anything. And then we have the Green Bay Packers, and my takeaway from the Packers side is I really don't trust a single Packers player to start on any given week. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, we don't know if they're going to be running the ball a lot or if Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing it more. We don't know who they're going to be running the ball to if they do run it a lot. Between Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, we don't know how many carries they're going to get. They had 19 total this week. I mean, we might be able to see 30 from them. We might only see 15. We don't know. And then on the wide receiver side, there's just so many names that are decent that I just really can't tell. Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, Romeo Doubs, Christian Watson. It's just too packed of a wide receiver room. And then we should see Sammy Watkins back as well. So it's too crowded of a wide receiver room for me. I mean, I still think all these guys are worth stashes, especially Lazard's worth a stash and Dobbs. But that's really about it. Anyways, that is it from the London game. Let's move on here to our next set of games. 38-3, Pittsburgh versus Buffalo. I mean, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, I'm sorry. That must have been painful, but can't really expect anything else. Rookie quarterback going into arguably the hardest defense in the entire NFL, if not the hardest defense in the entire NFL. And obviously didn't do much. Threw the ball 52 times and still only scored 3 points. Najee Harris scoring 5 points. I am scared out of my mind for Najee Harris. I think if you are a Najee Harris owner, go out and trade him immediately. He has a really hard schedule coming up. In the Buccaneers, then the Dolphins, then the Eagles, 3 of the hardest defenses, and then has a bye, and then is playing the Saints. I mean, that's just painful. And then is playing Cincinnati. And then the Colts. Oh my God. And then it lets up a little bit with Atlanta, but Baltimore. I mean, this is just really, really painful. Even the Panthers have a good run defense. So I'm really scared of Najee. Trade him if you can. I would even be willing to move off from 1-for-1 for Leonard Fournette. I would move off of him pretty easily for Leonard Fournette, actually. James Conner, even, probably I would move off him for. He was a guy I was scared of going into the season, but it's worse than I anticipated. And then other than that, there's really nobody else I would want to start. I mean, George Pickens, 8 targets. Deontay Johnson, 13. Chase Claypool with 9 targets, and still only one of these players puts up over 10 fantasy points, and that was George Pickens with 11. That's terrifying. I mean, you can't trust any wide receiver in this offense with the quarterback change and everything like that. And then from the Buffalo side, Josh Allen might put up the most fantasy points of all time at the quarterback position. I would not be surprised. I mean, he hasn't had less than 23 points in a game this season. 31, 29, 26, 23, and 35. It's just unfair. He's so good. And because of that, I mean, we see Gabe Davis drop 30 points. We see Stephon Diggs have another 20 points. Khalil Shakir, who I liked going into the season, puts up 15 points. This team's just looking like all around like the most dominant team in the NFL. And then from the Chargers, Browns side, both, I mean, Justin Herbert and Jacoby Brissett put up the same exact points, 14.42 and 14.4. So I guess it wasn't exact, but it was very, very similar. But my main takeaway from this game is pretty much about the running backs. I mean, we saw Austin Ekeler drop 34 points. Joshua Kelly even had 15 points on 10 carries for 50 yards and 33 yards receiving. We saw Nick Chubb have 134 yards on 17 rushes. That efficiency is crazy. And we saw Kareem Hunt actually score the least out of these 4 running backs, but still put up 13 points with 14 total opportunities. And I think Kareem Hunt with 14 opportunities is a very, very safe running back. Obviously with a ton of upside if Nick Chubb is to go down. But Nick Chubb is looking like arguably the best running back in the entire NFL. He's definitely a top 3 running back for sure. I mean, he just looks different this year. And then from the wide receiver side, we do have Amari Cooper and Mike Williams. Both of these players getting targeted combined 25 times and putting up 200 yards between the two of them. These are guys we know are very boom or bust. But, I mean, I like both of them. I think they're both good fantasy options. Amari Cooper a little bit less so because of the quarterback situation. But he's honestly been pretty good when he's been good. When he's bad, it's awful. But, not to quote Eminem. But when it's bad, it's really bad. But it's not bad all the time. So he is worth at least a flex play if you need a boom week from someone. Next, we got the Jaguars versus the Houston Texans. And I think before the season started, everyone was like, oh, this game is going to be terrible. This game's going to be awful. And then the season started, and both these teams actually looked decent. And people were thinking, oh, this game's going to be, might be good. Final score was 13-6. This game was not good. The highest scoring player was Dameon Pierce with 18 fantasy points, which actually isn't terrible. I mean, it's pretty good for running back. But my main 2 takeaways are both, again, about the running back position. And that is Travis Etienne is slowly taking over this role as the weeks progress. And then Dameon Pierce is that guy in this offense. Enough said. I mean, when you have Davis Mills putting up 5 fantasy points, and nobody on their team other than Dameon Pierce putting up more than 8, I really just... I think Dameon Pierce is the only one in this offense I would like. I wouldn't touch Davis Mills with a 19.5 foot pole. And Trevor Lawrence, well, he looks good. Again, it's only his second year, so he's going to have rough patches. And losing to the Texans is certainly a rough patch here. But we did see a pretty even split between Etienne and Robinson, both of them getting 10 carries, but Etienne getting more utilized in the receiving game, which is what you like to see in the long term. But Christian Kirk wasn't really involved, which I think he was a good sell-high candidate. I think now he's kind of trending more towards a buy-low guy, because I think he still will be the best receiver in this offense, especially with how much they paid him. But that's it for this game. Now let's move on to the choke fest that was the Vikings versus the Bears. I mean, this game was wild. Tons of players in the Vikings had a lot of fantasy output. We had Kirk Cousins dropping 22 fantasy points, Dalvin Cook dropping 25, Justin Jefferson dropping 24 fantasy points. It was just an overall good showing for everyone in this offense that is at least quote-unquote a main guy. I mean, I wouldn't say, at this point, I would say Adam Thielen's less so a main guy. And more so a side piece. KJ Osborne, he's starting to trend up there, but still not a main dude yet. But either way, we see this offense really explode and still almost blow the game to the Chicago Bears. Bears down heavy early, but find a way to claw their way back and make it a one-score game to end it. Justin Fields had some really crazy runs, 8 carries for 47 yards, about what you should expect. And we saw that Monty is the main guy in this offense when he is healthy, even though Khalil Herbert looks really good when he plays. David Montgomery is their guy. They trust him. I mean, he had quadruple the work that Khalil Herbert had. And if that's the case, again, I would much rather own David Montgomery. So next up, we got the Patriots versus the Detroit Lions. And my first takeaway is that Jared Goff, well, he will have big games. He will also have very small games like we saw here. He didn't have DeAndre Swift this game, which might have been a little bit of a knock, but the Patriots defense is pretty good, and it showed today with Jared Goff going 19 of 35 and an interception and a fumble lost. It's not very good. The only productive player in this offense was Josh Reynolds. Amon-Ra didn't really do too much, which is good. I mean, maybe now he might be a buy low candidate, potentially. I'll talk about that in a buy low video sometime this week, some great buy lows, but nobody was really efficient in this game. The running backs weren't really that great either. But over on the Patriots side, for one, Zappy looked like a good NFL quarterback. Again, not a quarterback that I am trusting in fantasy, but a good NFL quarterback, which is very surprising. It's weird to me, quite frankly, but good for him. And then we see that Damian Harris goes down, and when either of these two guys, Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson, are set to miss time, I think the other one is going to take over this backfield and run with it. Ramondre Stevenson had 161 yards rushing and along with 14 receiving yards, so 175 total yards. And he had 18.5 points without a touchdown. That's a stat line that I think only like Christian McCaffrey usually does. And while I wouldn't expect that every week, I think if you have Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris is forced to miss time with his hamstring, it's absolutely worth it to go out and start him. I think at least at flex, maybe even RB2 if you need. And the next game, the last game I would like to discuss, was the Saints versus the Seahawks. And this game was pretty interesting. First, we saw Geno Smith ball, as per usual at this point. I mean, 24 points. He's going nuclear. We also saw Rashad Penny get injured with an injury that's likely derailing him for the season. If that's the case, I mean, Kenneth Walker becomes a lot more valuable, which is nice. I'm not sure how much they're going to use him, but I would at least say you could see like 13 carries a game from him, and that's fine. He's not really much of a receiving back, but I mean, 8 carries for 88 yards is great. He's going to get the job done. And then we have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf balling because, you know, why not? Geno Smith's balling. They should all ball as well. And I mean, this game was just full of absolute fantasy studs. The only one that really wasn't, Andy Dalton putting up less than 10 fantasy points. What do you expect? We had Alvin Kamara putting up 20 fantasy points, which is like what you like to see. Considering Kamara hasn't really been that great to start the season, you want that confidence in him, and this game gave you that confidence. And we had Olave putting up 13 points, which is good. He is out with a concussion, so he missed, I think, like the last quarter of the game. I'm not exactly sure when he went down, but he had it on a touchdown pass. So I hope he'll be okay for next week, but I think the league is going to be playing it safe now with the whole Tua thing. So, and rightfully so. But if Chris Olave is forced to miss a week, I really wouldn't even want to start any of these wide receivers from here unless Michael Thomas comes back, then in which case, yeah. But also, Taysom Hill, oh my god, 34 fantasy points, 3 total touchdowns and 112 yards, and a passing touchdown. How? If you started him, you probably won your week. And it's crazy because he only received 30% of snaps. But Taysom Hill, I mean, is one of the most unique players in the entire NFL. I think he's at least worth a roster spot. I would consider spending some fab on him. He's only rostered in 24% of leagues. So you can go out and get him. I'll be covering him on my waiver wire video tomorrow. He's a guy I did actually have in my waiver wire video in week 1. But either way, that is it for this first half of games from week 5. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you guys did, please go down, give this video a like, give this video a comment. Again, I'm answering every single fantasy football related comment, and subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy. I hope you guys did. But as always, have a good day, a good night, and a good life.